So welcome everyone to today's lecture, and we will get to introductions in a little bit. But to know, SoCal NOMA has probably a dozen, maybe 14, I lose count, of NOMA's chapters at the various schools we have here from really Cal Poly Slow on down into Southern Cal. And we try and network with some of them, and I certainly reach out and try and get some synergy because our lectures are virtual. There's really no reason for others not to be able to come. And so this is what we do because all the other schools, of course, have theirs in person. Um, and that was really something I strive to do about 3, 4 years ago is why, even though we are a community college, do we not have lectures? So they're inspired and see some professional work and see which way they're going and see the diversity in work they can do, which once I read the bios on the two of you, I wrote down, well, first of all, I normally don't put that much of the bios in a flyer, but I put it out there and said, you all need to read this. And I reiterate this again, even if you are attending this, you should really read these women's bios because it is not only knowledgeable, but it's inspirational how they both are attacking architecture, right? Where even the client is in architecture. So pay attention to that. And I've tried to note that you may stay in architecture without being an architect, which could be another fruitful way of working on it. Said, oh, I didn't even know she was NOMA SF in the past, right? San Francisco. So it's pretty cool. And I will for a moment share screen on that flyer while I'm talking. But for all the students that are El Camino students, know that you can get extra credit in one of your classes. One, I say, which choose which class you want to get extra credit. And you just need to write a brief, basically half page on what's your takeaway from this lecture. All the other students, I do want to say welcome from USC to Santa Monica College and all the others I'm not naming, anybody representing in there. Glad to see you. And it was definitely an invitation I put out to professionals at large as well, because it was such not really just that it's a unique topic, but it's inspirational as I know, practicing and doing a project that people really appreciate. Um, and you can get your arms around something you don't want to walk away from and forget that you were attached to, which I've got a few of those, right? Both aesthetically and mentally traumatic. It was really an exciting thing. And lastly, um, another reason why this lecture's come about is I did see them give this presentation at the NOMA National Conference in Baltimore. And most students on the call have never been to a national conference. And so I really wanted students, and half of them that do go are so caught up in the design competition, they don't have an opportunity to see some of the seminars that take place. And this is a prime example of one of the diverse seminars you would see when you come. So I invite you to come even if you're not participating in the competition. And if you do, try and get to one or two. I was so happy I got up on Saturday and came to see this one. And the way I describe it to students is imagine if you got a free pass to go to the AMC theater, not to see one movie, but to go in and be able to spend the day there and choose which movie you want to go to. That's what the diverse seminar tracks are like, and you get to stick your head in or stay in one, and others, you get that for the whole thing. Next year's uh, conference is in Kansas City. And so, we're going to be working on trying to get grants to get our students, some of our students there. and others to come. And I do say, you would say Kansas City. One might have said that about Baltimore, but I do like going to the kind of quasi off the grid cities because I know nothing else is going to make me go there. And I can't tell you what excitement it was really coming in earlier and getting to do Baltimore, which I never did before because I've been there once and just right through. And I always kind of come in before and stay a little later and actually take in the city and learn it. So I stayed in Fells Point, by the way, which is really sort of cool industrial area and get to learn that. So you could be sure whatever city you go to will be an experience that you can carry with you as you think about your things you do in architecture. So there's kind of some of my preamble. Last thing I want to say is the great advantage of doing these lectures virtually is that they are recorded. And so we probably have 7 or 8 recordings on our YouTube channel. So if you go to, and I will put it in the chat, if you just go to YouTube and do a search on ECC space Arc Club, which is our architecture club, you'll see that we have a number of different professionals, including the one that's about to speak now. He's done one for us before, Steve Lewis. But I always talk about one I really love was that 2 architects from HKS did a presentation on the design of SoFi Stadium, design and construction. And even to our esteemed guests, I urge you, I'll send you a link to those to really get to see that. They went through the landscape design, architecture, and the engineering and the building of it. And it was just an awesome lecture. But we have a number of lectures. And for students, we also have a quick tutorial on how to use Rhino as well as using SketchUp. So we try and make these things available to all. And so before I turn this over to my presenter or my announcer, I have to say to the presenters, thank you very much for doing this. One would say it's an honor, but I got to tell the students I already had this honor because I seen it. But when I saw it, I knew it would be awesome if students and others could see it. So really, honestly, tonight is more of a kind of a meritless privilege because they didn't have to say yes. They don't even know me. I want students to understand, but they said yes just because I asked. And I humbly say thank you. Saundra Little is in Detroit right now. So all you whiners talking about, I'm not sure if I got time to do it. It's 9 p.m. when this started over there, okay? And this is a professional that's been going at it. And SHELLEY Roberts is in the Bay Area, but still, I'm sure they could be doing something else other than doing this. So again, I say thank you. And without further ado, I'm going to let Steve Lewis, which I found out is very tied with Saundra, to present Saundra. And I'm going to let Saundra present SHELLEY because she knows her even better than I. So take it away, Steve.
All right, all right. Thank you, Ruben. And first, I think it would be equally appropriate to acknowledge the impact that you as an educator have had in the community. The fact that you so passionately bring these opportunities to your students and students beyond your own reach is what our kind of leadership is all about. And that allows me the perfect way to talk about leadership. And Saundra Little, who's a good friend and a colleague of mine for years, and Saundra is, I was a national NOMA president for the years 2009, 2010. We have 2-year terms. Saundra will be the following president after Brian Lee, who's about to take office for 2 years. Saundra will be the next incoming president. That's a testimony to her selfless commitment to service, which is a new paradigm for we architects and you students in particular, coming out with a more of a social conscience, more of a commitment to serve the underserved who have been ignored and not addressed by the skills and talents that we as a profession have. this is what grounds Saundra and myself and pushes us into working in areas where the impact of our work can be transitional for people who are accustomed to getting that service. So Saundra Little, amazing sister. She and her partner had a firm that was successful enough for Quinn Evans to recognize them and offer them an opportunity to be bought. So Saundra's been bought by Quinn Evans, and she's a principal in their Detroit office. They're a national firm. We have collaborated on going after a lot of work together because we complement each other, and we feel like when it comes to projects in our own communities, we are the most apt stewards for that. But in terms of background, Saundra's a graduate, undergraduate, and master's degree from Lawrence Tech in Detroit. It's a very partisan school. When NOMA had its conference in Detroit, Lawrence Tech's marching band put it on for us. It was all good, awesome. Saundra and Karen Burton, her colleague and friend, had a co-work space in Detroit that's been very successful and kept them at the center of kind of, all of the juices that are flowing in a place like Detroit that's coming back so strong. In her own words, she's highly regarded for her planning and design work in the urban realm. She's completed many award-winning projects in adaptive reuse, renovation, and redevelopment. She's a founding member of the advisory board of Core Detroit, an organization established to promote and celebrate Detroit's architectural legacy. Detroit Design Corps' achievements include having Detroit named as a UNESCO City of Design. Saundra's distinctive portfolio spans the research and revitalization of historic districts, including African-American neighborhoods, the sustainable design of the 21st century educational, cultural, and workplace environments, including cutting-edge co-work spaces, her extensive volunteer work and commitment to the community and mentoring students interested in architecture and architectural careers. So she's the bomb in Detroit right now, and it gives me great pleasure to drop her on you guys for what I'm sure you will appreciate as a eye-opening and very inspirational conversation about the work that she's been doing. So Saundra, I turn it to you, my dear.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. So excited to be here virtually with everyone to actually give you a version of this presentation that Shelley and I did at the NOMA conference, but we have been working together now for quite some time because of this project. So we have had the chance to develop our relationship even through the pandemic, all the way until today. And actually this project is basically a celebration too of our partnership between our two firms, between Quinn Evans and DJDS, working coast to coast, really almost. It's from Detroit to San Francisco, working together in the city, and now having DJDS have an office now in Detroit. It is like a culmination of everything coming together. So great to be a part of that. This early part of them being in Detroit and the great things that are happening in the city as far as adaptive reuse projects and beyond. Detroit is on the renovation revival right now. And this project, which we're going to talk about today, the Allied Media Love Building, is definitely being completed late last year and being opened this year for that grand opening in September. It is definitely becoming a talking point within the city now. I will introduce to you Shelley Roberts. I don't have her whole bio in front of me. I'm gonna let her tell her story and her role at DJDS, but it has been an honor to work with you, Shelley. So I'll let you talk a little bit about yourself.
Thank you very much. Actually, you know what? I'll go ahead and just share my screen and kind of get into it. All right. So I'll give my disclaimer. This is the presentation that we did at the NOMA conference. So you'll see the same header. Hi, everybody. Very excited to be here and excited to see so many names on the screen. We got a full house tonight, it looks like. My name is SHELLEY Roberts. I'm the studio director with Designing Justice, Designing Spaces. And I have been working in the field of architecture for over 25 years, done a range of projects. I say from the cradle to the grave. I literally started out in a firm that designed crypts and mausoleums, and have done schools and retail and private family dwellings, and have done a little bit of everything. And so now to be doing this work that I'm doing now, and really trying to address social justice with architecture has been, has really made everything come full circle. Had an opportunity to combine my love of the arts with what I do as well. So I've done some set design and some large scale installations, and have had the honor to work with House Full of Black Women, which has been an artist cohort in Oakland that was looking at kind of addressing the issues around the displacement of Black women and the trafficking of young women through art. And so that has also been a great love of mine, and I'm happy to be able to share that little part of my story as well. Let's go ahead and dive in to the presentation. Again, we're looking at we call it Development the Right Way, the Love Building Project. And we'll talk a little bit about the engagement process of this project, how we developed the concept, how we came together in our partnership, the project construction. We'll talk about lessons learned along the way, and then looking towards the future. This is as Saundra mentioned, kind of we're a multi-layered story. It's not just like we came together and we built a project, but it's about really two minority firms coming together, building a partnership across the country. And what does that look like to be able to do that and to be able to serve community as well, and while navigating different things that are happening with businesses and careers and all of that played out through this process. So you'll hear a little bit about all of that as we talk through. So want to take an opportunity to talk about our practices and who we are and how we practice. And so Saundra, I will hand it over to you to talk about Quinn Evans.
All righty, thank you, Shelley. Like Steve said, I am a principal and director of diversity, equity, and inclusion at Quinn Evans. And one of the aspects of the firm that I just truly latched on to, and it actually connects directly to this project, is the importance of social infrastructure that's in cities across the country. Like there are buildings that have stories tied to them. They have the culture of the city tied to them, and working with a firm like Quinn Evans that started 40 years ago, that's rooted in historical preservation, really sees that as the key in the background to the practice, but also, like I said, do historical preservation as well as adaptive reuse projects. But these projects that have stories tied to them basically have a deep, like I said, social infrastructure tie that connects the city. And when you repurpose the building, that love for that building is kept into each project as we're moving forward. And I actually had the opportunity to talk to Dr. Mindy Fullalove about her quote on social infrastructure, and had her interviewed her in a webcast that we have online on our website. You should check it out. But great conversation. So it's projects like the one we're going to introduce to you are engines to community vitality, right? And that's one of the key themes and principles to our firm, Quinn Evans. You go to the next one. The center of our ethos at Quinn Evans is basically what we call a sweet spot. It's a combination of different aspects that we get to that basically ties to the cultural sustainability of a community, adaptive reuse. If it's preservation, it's communal, we do it all together, and place saving. So it's also place keeping as well for a city when you go in and do an adaptive reuse project or a preservation project. That's not the only type of projects we do. We do new construction projects as well, but like I said, the root of the firm is at its core is about it's about community impact, and it's about saving spaces for people. So you can go to the next one. We have done, like I said, we've taken industrial buildings and turned them into art galleries. We are, long as every project is people oriented and stewardship focused, that is the center and core, tentacle and theme to our practice. This project is done in conjunction with a glass artist, and is in our Henry Ford's Greenfield Village in Detroit. You can go to the next slide. And then there's an aspect to adaptive reuse and preservation that people don't think about, and it's basically building reuse is climate action. One of our former or still principal emeritus, Carl Elefante, is a past AIA national president, and his mantra during his presidency is that the greenest building is a building that's already built, and that is what we believe. Like I said, the building reuse is climate action, but also with that social infrastructure piece, it fosters social equity within a place. So you can go to the next one, Shelley. This is Quinn Evans. Like Steve said, it's a large firm. We have 6 offices. It's 230 people. We are this year's AIA Firm Award winner. A very exciting year for us, and basically a great firm to land. I guess I say, as I'm at the peak of my career, and having this year 2024 be a peak year for us. Go to the next slide.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about designing justice, designing spaces, and how we work and who we are. And so we are a Black women-led architecture and real estate development firm. We're a nonprofit. We actually have a hybrid company structure, but the mission of our organization is to build the infrastructure that's needed to end mass incarceration. And so that means examining the root causes, which could be poverty, unequal access to resources, racism, our existing judicial system, and what are the things that we're looking at that need to change about that. We do acknowledge the systems of oppression that have morphed and changed over the years into what we now know as mass incarceration. So we've gone from enslavement, Jim Crow laws, going through the civil rights movement, redlining. So as to make progress in the rules change every time. And so now we're in this era of mass incarceration where there are kind of cycles of violence that are continuing to be perpetuated, and we are funneling a disproportionate amount of Black and brown bodies into the carceral system that feeds the beast that is known as the prison industrial complex. And for those who are in power, who have access to capital, access to land, they're going to build what they believe in, right? And so if the belief is in keeping people separate, that one group of people is better than the other, that in basic inequity, then this is what that looks like. You're going to have tree deserts. You're going to building freeways through neighborhoods to keep people separated, and then packaging up as the Freeway Act or urban renewal, locating toxic uses next to poor neighborhoods and things like that. And our buildings become monuments to our beliefs. And so if there is a different set of beliefs that people can change, that people can heal, that people do deserve to have equal access to resources, what does that world look like? And so what do we build instead? In looking at prison reform, we are, DJDS is actually an abolitionist organization, in that we do not believe that prettier prisons are the answer. And so what we build instead looks like an ecosystem of care. And so there are about 8 different buckets of work that we focus on that we believe will help lead to that pathway of ending mass incarceration, serving, kind of a holistic approach, serving the whole person, looking at how you diversion from prison, youth spaces to disrupt that school to prison pipeline, being able to provide restorative reinvestment, and who can buy land, who has the capital to invest back in community, and spaces for survivors, people who have faced severe violence, and what does it look like to be able to design spaces for them, and behavioral health. So all of those things that serve the basic needs for all of us. We work across disciplines, and so, as I mentioned, we offer full architectural services, but we also have a real estate development arm. We work as an interdisciplinary firm with research and evaluation for post-occupancy review of our projects, understanding how they work, after they've been in use, community engagement, communication and advocacy, and raising and doing fundraising and advocating for the new prototypes that we're trying to build. So, and working in this way allows us to help our clients to build capacity. Many of them have not done development projects. They're organizers, or they're other nonprofits that are doing difficult work to serve community, and so now embarking on a development project, and this is a whole new ball game. And so how do we, in order to be able to help people build capacity, I feel like it's necessary to be able to work across disciplines. We offer a concept development process, which is a kind of a robust feasibility and feasibility study process. So bringing together the programming, design, how are you going to pay for it, and then also keeping our hand in policy and understanding, what is shaping all of the work, understanding the ordinances and the laws and all the kinds of things that are shaping the work that we do. Our approach is to work with innovative thinkers, innovative program providers who are looking to serve community in a different way. They're positioning themselves to be able to buy properties and to anchor themselves in community. And so a lot of the work that we do, they're serving as new prototypes, new building typologies. So we go through that concept development process, which I'll talk a little bit more about. We then get the projects built, and then 1 to 2 years after they've been occupied, evaluate them to understand what's working, maybe what's not working, but how those projects can then become a replicable model. DJDS has also been a thought leader in looking at restorative justice cities, and understanding what is the kind of infrastructure that you would need in order to, again, move away from what are kind of justice corridors. You've got your courthouses and bail bonds and all of those things, but what does it look like when you are providing a corridor of resources, so schools, behavioral health, and youth spaces throughout cities? And so you're really reinvesting back in community. And so in 2013, we had a convening that was looking at that, inviting urban planners and architects and different cities constituents to come together and think about what that could look like. And out of that convening, and I don't mean this happened magically, this was over a 5 or 6 year process, we were able to build Restore Oakland, which is one of the country's first kind of restorative justice and restorative economic centers. There's a dedicated space for restorative justice. And this is the new home for Ella Baker Center for Human Rights, Causa Justa, Just Cause, which is a tenants' right organization. And on the ground floor is where Rock United, which is a Restaurant Opportunity Centers United. They are a food justice organization, has a kitchen and a restaurant. And so with this organization being able to anchor itself in community, that allows them to be able to offer more services. And so DJDS was able to help them acquire this building. We did a full adaptive reuse of the building, took it all the way through construction. And we just recently finished, it's been occupied for about 2 years. We just finished our post-occupancy evaluation of the building, understanding again, how can this be a replicable model? And so that brings us to the work of Detroit that was also trying to position itself as a restorative justice city. I'll hand it back to Saundra to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is actually where our first meeting with DJDS was when they were in town for a summit, for a youth summit. There was a Wayne County jail being built, which was inside the city center, and they was talking about basically moving it outside the city center. But just the fact that it was being built brought DJDS and Detroit Justice Center together to do this summit, and it was actually a youth summit. And then the connection between the two of us came through NOMA. So it's a lot of NOMA members on the call today, and I have to pay homage to Prescott Reeves, who was instrumental in a lot of things within NOMA, our NOMA project pipeline, and had been on NOMA National Board for a number of years, student rep, you name it. Well, he still was doing his thing with joining forces with DJDS and working with them, and basically getting this youth summit here. So he was reaching out as soon as he came into town and was like, I need some materials for this summit I'm doing. Can you reach out to the NOMA members to help get me some materials? I need magazines. I need, whatever it was. So that NOMA family piece was here when they came to the city to have this youth summit. And this was the connection that first through NOMA Detroit and DJDS happened between our two firms. And at this time, I had my own firm. I was a minority firm owner, just like the owners of DJDS, and immediate connection between the two of us as they came into Detroit and started to do restorative justice work here. So the project that we basically start to work on first is located along Grand River and Warren Avenue in Detroit, and with Quinn Evans having our history and preservation background, we have historians on board. So we actually started to look at the history of the site for the project, and then DJDS actually came into town and really came in thoughtful because they basically wanted to learn more about the history of the city as well, and actually kind of have meetings with Jamon Jordan, who's City of Detroit's historian, and others, just to learn more about it. So we actually looked at this site where the Allied Media Love Building was over time, and looked at how the site looked when it was in its heyday in the 1930s, when Detroit was an industrial powerhouse, and basically how it looks today in the picture to the right. And the site is highlighted in red in both of these photos, just to see the context of things that have changed in Detroit over time. But if you read about us in the news now, we're definitely under a resurgence. So you'll see a lot of new projects that are happening, just like this project here at 1431. I don't know if you have anything, Shelley, there.
Yeah, so this is the Bell building. And so this is actually what we would think of as the kind of replication of the Restore Oakland project. So when the Restore Oakland project was finished, we didn't just kind of show up in Detroit. We'd had a history of being in Detroit and wanting to align ourselves with other folks who were doing restorative justice work. This opportunity came about, and this is really kind of getting us into like how this all came about, and how we began the process of our partnership, and when the building was acquired, and also how we were able to take this project through a concept development process, and help this Allied Media projects be able to anchor themselves in community.
Yeah, we had the opportunity. So you're seeing the exterior finished and the interior finished here. We had an opportunity to look at it architecturally, but we're going to get deeper into how we looked at it beyond that. But we were able to do some sustainable things like save the existing terrazzo floor that was actually in the lobby of this building that used to be a furniture warehouse, and then later became a artist loft type of building, a small gallery space that was in there, and roughly about 50% of the building was used at the time that this owner purchased it, and it needed a lot of work. It needed a lot of work to the building, so that's what kind of bred life into the project. But it was just great to be able to save some of the historical character of the building, as well as give it new life based on what we came together with the community and with the owner, Allied Media, to create this nonprofit hub, is what the building is now. So it was able to get a drastic change of use, and then 100% of the building is occupied and used now. And 4 floors of this building have been renovated into what is there today, and it is open today. So, but we'll take you through the process. So it was roughly a $10 million project, let's say. We got a 9.9, but and it is like I said, a 5-story building, really 4 stories with a penthouse. There's roughly 27,000 square feet. It is a house to Allied Media, which is the nonprofit that owns it, but it's also like that same entity, Detroit Justice Center, that was part of that Detroit Justice Youth Summit, is a tenant that takes over the 2nd floor of this building. And another key organization, Detroit Disability Power, is on the 3rd floor of this building. The main floor is kind of the community space with the welcoming lobby you just saw in the picture, and then there's a small restaurant space that's off to the side. All of those nonprofits come together with missions behind them. Like I said, Detroit Disability Power. You have Detroit Justice Center that's fighting similar battle that DJDS does, and fighting against mass incarceration. And they are basically a nonprofit organization of lawyers. It is just great to see all of this come together in one spot. And then Allied Media uses media, art, and technology to focus for social justice. So they basically help make sure everybody's voice is heard in the media through podcasting. There's like movie showing in this building. There's a podcast studio, you name it. And it's already starting to be, and not even being open up a year, be a hub of activity that's happening in the city.
So as I mentioned, so with the site acquisition process, Allied Media Projects was able to purchase the building in 2018. It was a 5-story previous furniture warehouse. There were Allied Media Projects was actually operating out of another building, and looking again to anchor itself. You know, when you own land, it really does allow you to be able to anchor yourself in community, and be able to expand your services. So the fact that they were able to gain the capital to be able to do that really has shifted things in the organization. And so you know, when you're going through this process, understanding how you're going to finance the project. And so DJDS was able to help them to think through that as part of the concept development process. So the rent grant proposal was a way to look at how you could look at different tenants that could generate revenue for the project. So when we think about an operating pro forma, you know, and looking at how the building is going to operate and pay, be able to pay rent and to pay for itself, you need to look at how are the things that are going to be operating out of the building generate revenue that will be able to sustain the project, you know, 5 and 10 years down the line. How do you weather through different economic cycles? And so this was an opportunity to be able to actually close. So once you're able to kind of prove that, you can close a financing gap, you can move the project forward, and then you're also achieving that proof of concept again, that you're able to operate the building into the future.
Yeah, and when we started the project, that the picture that Shelley just had on the screen was the 4th floor of that Love building on the top. And literally at the time, like I said, had my own firm. We went after an RFP for this with Allied Media. They put out for public bid for architectural services, and it was only for the 4th floor. Like we literally were like, the RFP was like, well, how do you you know, you've had experience in co-working spaces, and I had done a lot of those in the city. How do you make this space for us on the 4th floor? And actually it was used for, there were people skateboarding on this floor, and there were a lot of artists kind of open parties that were being used here, and that's why it's like dark colored. And this actually is now the 4th floor space for Allied Media. So to see the before picture and how we started this project with only talking about doing 1 floor and expanded to doing the entire building, that's why we got in those deeper conversations that Shelley's talking about the pro forma and the financing gap there. $2.5 million is quite a gap to be able to fill for a nonprofit. So DJDS definitely helped with that process. And like Shelley, like we were saying, like it was 2 minority firms coming together. So my firm was Centric Design Studio. Our firm was acquired by Quinn Evans in 2018. So it was like right after we had completed the whole master plan for the building, and had started to get financing for the project. And then my firm gets acquired, and we end up doing the whole building at Quinn Evans. So but love the fact that our relationship and our ties with DJDS continued through this process. And it was just, it was a great learning opportunity for myself as well. I mean, you hear architects talk about architects as developer, but to see a group of nonprofits as developers on this project was really, really great. And to see how DJDS brought that understanding in the nonprofit world to this project and help this client through.
So one other thing that I'll mention about this is that when it came time to figure out how to move the project forward, that Allied Media Projects actually put out an RFP, and Saundra reached out to us like, hey, this is happening. And so, this is again just like how the partnership developed. And so we were able to bring our our approach to concept development to this project, and bringing together, like as I mentioned before, that program element, the design and finance. And so you're packaging all of that up together to be able to show not only you're showing the aesthetic vision, but also you're presenting the numbers of how it's actually how you're going to pay for it and how it's going to operate into the future. And that's an important thing for investors to be able to see when you're doing a capital fundraising campaign like they were doing for this project. I wanted to talk a little bit about our history in Detroit. As I mentioned before, we didn't just show up there, but our ties came from doing the restorative justice city work with Black Family Development Corp. We actually looked at doing the restorative justice city reinvestment tool, working with the Church of Messiah, Detroit Justice Center, and looking at the different kind of community resources that could feed into that. There was the failed jail youth workshop, which you talked about earlier, and then coming together with Centric Design at the time to do the concept design. An important part of our concept development process is community engagement, and so asking and co-designing with those who are most impacted by the project. We believe that you cannot design effectively for experiences that you haven't lived, right? And so understanding that, DJDS is not from Detroit. And so, how can we engage and understand, what this neighborhood was about? What are the previous experiences that can, and history of the neighborhood that can inform the project? And also understanding, what is the context now, and actually co-designing with community and creating different tools to be able to help people to talk about and think about design, and demystifying the architecture and development process. So, for example, in the upper right, there's a space planning and finance game where you're looking at different scales you're understanding the different scales of building elements. So what does a 1,000 square foot space look like next to a 500 square foot space, and how do those things stack up? And then there's a second part of the game where you figure out how you're going to use dice and poker chips to understand how you're going to pay for the different parts of the project. So there's a full understanding of how development works. We actually even created on the lower left, we created a deck of cards for people to be able to express how they might, different design elements to have different colors. There's different plants. There's just different ways of thinking about design, and being able to provide those tools to community to be able to discuss and to think about those is all part of the process of co-designing with community. So we take all of that information, all of that data that is collected, and we look at it quantitatively in terms of understanding what are those things, those design elements, and those spaces that we heard about over and over again. And then also qualitative information. Again, what are the kind of cultural stories that we're hearing? What are some of the different qualities of how people want to feel in the different spaces? And so being able to then quantify that information and understand, what are the kind of priorities that rise to the top. And so in this particular instance, we understood that that retail and daily needs was really important. 33% of the people that we engaged with really were focused on that. Residential was also another important piece. That was not a part of this project, but it was something that we heard, and we can't ignore that, right? So, these are the things that again, were priorities. And so that helps us to inform the program, which is then going to inform the design of the building. And
so the engagement for this project did not stop at the initial engagement we did for programming and for the initial design of the building. Allied Media established a neighborhood advisory council, and this advisory council was started exactly right after that in community engagement event. And this advisory council is still in act today. So this board does change out over time, but this council will always be a part of the structure of this project moving forward. And they continue to get feedback from their advisory board on different key elements that are happening in the core city neighborhood. And that's the neighborhood where this project is located. And they made sure they got every walk of life, every age group, and keep in constant contact with these individuals as they operate as a nonprofit community hub.
So, go ahead.
Okay. Oh yeah. So we not only did we just meet up in Detroit, we also met up in Oakland. So our team at the time, Centric Design Studios, Shanita and I flew out to Oakland and was able to come to DJDS's office, and we had a charrette after the community engagement piece, and really kind of started to dissect and the project and the feedback that we had gotten back and moving forward with the design. So it was great to be in each other's space as we worked on this project, all the way through. So this was like right before, this was the end of 2018, right before my firm was acquired. So in 2019, then I'm a part of Quinn Evans, but this effort of this design charrette was great to do early on in the process. But you can go ahead too, Shelley.
Sure, yeah. I also just wanted to mention one of our project partners is Arab, which is one of the largest kind of engineering firms in the world. And so we have an agreement with them where they provide kind of pro bono consulting services to come in and help us to think about sustainability, looking at larger urban planning or parking or just any number of elements that all the things that are going to need to come together on a project. So again, it's like, it's the partnership and the effort that it takes to get a building built is huge. And so being able to have this kind of open and collaborative process that we're all able to bring some of these important elements to the table is really key. So in taking all of that information that we learned from the community engagement process, and then having how that informs the program, then we start to look at, okay, how does that now start to lay out onto the site or into this existing building? And so what you're seeing is kind of looking at programming and adjacencies and what is a reflection of the engagement that we did, and understanding they wanted a community space. And then there's the retail pieces that are on the ground floor, having a welcoming lobby, and again a space that's going to really engage and have that activated ground floor. On the second through the fourth floors, those were mainly the commercial office spaces. And so what people really wanted were to have in addition to the offices, were to have casual spaces to gather, and also different places to be able to work. So not just being in a cubicle, but can I go into another space and be able to sit on a couch and work on a proposal or whatever. And so having large windows and nice light coming into the building was really important. Spaces to be able to chill and relax, and to be able to, again, share food was also really important as we developed and looked at the different commercial office spaces. And Saundra, do you want to talk about the roof?
Yeah. We also talked about, even though we're in an urban context, how could the community, the workers who are coming, the nonprofits who are coming here every day doing the work in the community, how can you experience outside spaces? So that was part of that charrette too. When Arab was there, we talked to that, and we looked at activating the roof. So we actually ended up leaving roughly 750 square feet on the building for a rooftop activation, bringing green space, outdoor space to the building. And actually, once you get up on the rooftop level, which is now the 5th floor of this building, the views of the city of Detroit and the downtown area is amazing. And also with the green treetops that you see for all the neighborhoods on the way there, it has amazing views of this rooftop. And that was one of the things when we actually were there for that first engagement meeting. We were able to take a group through the building and tour it before all the renovation. And we went up there and everybody was like, these views are amazing. So the rooftop became a key piece from that workshop to activate that. And actually, to this day, it is actually funds are now, they actually finished the building renovation, but the funds for the roof are now there, and now that's being planned out for adding the furniture and the green spaces to the roof now. So done a little bit in phases because they're a nonprofit, but definitely getting what they wanted from community engagement.
So another piece of this is, we always it's always important to take an opportunity to zoom out. It's never just about the building itself, but what is the context of the building, around the building, of course, and what can happen in the future. And so we also took an opportunity to look at what it would look like to do some project phasing. Is there an opportunity to turn this into a campus? And what could that possibly look like? So we did some studies and looking at, with the Love Building as an anchor, what are the other kind of programming that could happen around, and how do we and be a part of the development that's happening along the Grand River corridor. And so you'll see how this plays out a little bit later in the presentation as well. And so, answering the questions that is an opportunity to possibly acquire more parcels. And again, how could this expand into a campus possibly? I'll mention that, the outdoor spaces are always key and never an afterthought. And so this was something that we also put a lot of thought into. And Saundra, you want to talk a little bit more about the?
Yeah. When we were continuing with the outdoor spaces, besides the roof, we looked at activating both sides of the building to continue out as much green space as we could. To the right is basically that one-story restaurant space that's off to the side, but we also looked at turning that parking lot into almost a green area that could have food trucks. It could be used as parking, but it was a multi-purpose outdoor space. The corner of that could have been could be converted into a small amphitheater, because Allied Media does a lot of events. They have a conference that they do every year, surrounded by media organizations that come across the country, and then they could literally activate the outside of the building. And then to the left, we were calling the outdoor space that spilled out from the community space that was on the ground floor, we were calling that our urban porch concept, right? Before you just spill out into the parking lot area, there's a space that's right outside that community space where you could continue conversations outdoors. You could have events that spill out into the site and still be feel like you're connected to green space and to place with this study. And it actually it's functioning just like this now. It's still things are starting to come together, definitely.
And so now, again, in that process of developing the concept, so we've gone from programming, the interior spaces, and looking at the landscape, and then now we're bringing it all together into kind of the vision that's going to go in, that tells the story of how this was of what the community would like to see. And so, you know, these renderings, again, they reflected what the community wanted in terms of being able to have that activated ground floor. And then, as Saundra mentioned, those outdoor spaces that allow that connection to nature. And, you know, we of course thought about sustainability was also a big part of the process as well. And Saundra, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So all of the elements of sustainability, like Shelley was talking about, we made the windows larger to let the daylighting in. We actually put skylights into the roof of the building, where we also are activating that roof. But that fourth floor ended up becoming, as you saw in that photo, it was a dark space. Not only just because of the paint, but because the windows were small and it's not a lot of light up there. So daylighting was very important to the main tenant of the building and owner of the building, Allied Media. And another thing that came out that was very important is that this building not only be a hub to the community, but also be a point of access. So this building provides free Wi-Fi access to the entire building. So that is on that roof as well, and became a key element when talking to the community, that this was when you have, you know, the digital divide that's happening in real communities, having access was one of those things that came up from that advisory board. As we started to connect more through our engagement. But you definitely can see how the spill out worked out and how that activated first floor. When this section, you can see it going all the way across the building and really giving a sense of spreading out that first floor beyond the boundaries of the building.
And so I'll quickly go through these. So now we're starting to see how this all comes together, and some of the, again, the visuals provide that storytelling element of this activated ground floor and retail spaces, and being able to again reflect what the community wanted to see in this multi-purpose community space on the ground floor. And then on the second level was the Detroit Justice Center, and again that build out of those spaces to be able to your office spaces to be able to work, but then also providing a variety of spaces to be able to be and commune, and to chill and relax as well. And then the third and fourth floors were for the at Allied Media Projects, took up the third and fourth floor levels. And so all of this again formed our concept development package, and there were parts of this that also looked at the financing again and the pro forma. And so this came together again to be able to help with the capital fundraising for the project.
So as you go through a project and really start to bring your design to life, we still engage with the community and the stakeholders and moving forward with the design implementation for this project. And I just wanted to show some construction photos here of what was happening with the project as we start to actually really get into it. There's, like we said, this was a former furniture warehouse. And if you look at the picture to the right, you'll see how you have spaces that are like 3'4" off the ground level. So this back half of the building before was actually the loading area for that furniture warehouse that used to be here before. And there are stairs that are and kind of odd floor level changes that are happening on this first level. And as we were moving from planning out that first floor for being the public space, and we started to get into accessibility and ADA for the building, we we had one of the tenants that was in the building, Detroit Disability Power, who basically was an advocate for disability and accessibility in the city of Detroit. I mean, they are the group that is on the city of Detroit's meetings for budget planning, for housing, and fighting for accessibility throughout the city. So when we started to talk about, hey, as an architectural point, we can, you know, ramp up to the back. We could have one entrance that comes through that has an elevator that spits, you know, that stops between two floors. And we had Dessa from Detroit Disability Power was like, well, wait a minute, you know, I don't think it's fair. You know, I think that the entrance experience for everybody should be the same. I don't think anybody should have to come into another entryway than somebody else. He's like, can we just level the first floor? And then we all kind of just stopped and was like, yeah, we can level the whole first floor. We can, so we ended up demoing out. It was a cost to do it, but we ended up demoing out pretty much, I think it was like almost like 2/3 of the first floor was at a 3'6" difference between the front and the back. So we basically tore out that difference. It was concrete work, got down to leveling it out, had to put a new cap on the basement in the back, and then made this first floor actually what it needed to be, and get those ceilings up to 14, 15 feet. And that first floor public level really came to life doing that. And it was just powerful just to be in the room with someone that basically brings a new perspective to your design world. Like there's a podcast interview out there with myself, Dessa, and Jeanette, who was the executive director, Allied Media, talking about this process. When Dessa's at the table, we were like, that, you know, we make all our doors 36 inches. That meets ADA, that meets accessibility guidelines. But Dessa's like, what about power wheelchairs? They're wider than that. We need to make all our doors 36 inches clear. So that's how all the doorways are on this building. All of that input was put in throughout the process. And it was great to design with and not for. So we were definitely able to do that with this project, and the great partners that were all part of Allied Media. So I've learned a lot. I did not know about power wheelchairs and the issues that some people with disabilities were having with that. So just the perspective was astounding throughout the project. Go to the next slide. As you can see, like even this is us starting the elevator construction. So we are widening those windows. All those window openings were smaller during the process. We started the elevator, which is off to the left at the bottom. And then we put in one elevator. As we're going through construction, the owner and Detroit Disability Power comes back to us again. And they're like, wait a minute, we just have funding for a second elevator. We want to add a second elevator to the project. Now, I've been through projects where you have to make design changes in the design phase, but we're in construction making design changes. So that floor level change, we did that before we started construction. But this change, we had to add a second elevator to the project. And the case was to be, they actually raised funds for this to create redundancy within the systems of the elevator. So if one elevator goes down, the people with disabilities still can get to their job with the other elevator up and running. So they actually were able to get funding for the second elevator based on that aspect. I have to say, that's what I love about nonprofits. If you tell the story right, they could actually make things happen. So we added a second elevator during construction. And you can go to the next slide. Shelley, and we had to literally enlarge that elevator addition. So you saw in that first picture under construction, that elevator was half the size of this elevator addition here, that we changed during the construction process. But we were also able to add in more welding spaces adjacent to the second elevator. We had to put in an elevator machine room on the ground level. But we were able to add wellness spaces on the other levels and respite spaces to add more to the wellness and well-being of the staff people who work in the building, and actually created 2 elevator lobbies, one for the main visitors to the building, and really the second one is for the staff. And them getting around and throughout the building, but now they have the 2 elevators for redundancy. You can go to the next slide. There were so many inclusive design elements that we talked about during the community engagement as well as throughout the project. So like I said, the whole first floor thing, minimizing floor changes where we could, with Allied Media being a media company, sound absorption and the ability to take this existing building and convert it for a use that they can do movie screens in. So that was a big consideration. All of the signage and wayfinding in the building is actually not just Braille, but the actual floor plan that you see here in the signage is raised. So someone can get a sense that doesn't have great eyesight can get a sense of the spaces in the building. And then we also used contrasting wall colors when we move from one space to the other to help with people who have sight issues as well. And basically certain rooms are for reflection as well. This is one of the wellness rooms that was created with the elevator addition with the wall coloring shown here in the photo. So all of those elements that we picked up throughout the project, we definitely made sure we tried to get those in the design and reflected in the space. So they got the space they asked for with the engagement. This was another aspect that actually is being fundraised for now. These could be put in aftermarket. So we have a Schindler elevator, and these specialized controls for people who have wheelchairs but don't have arm mobility are going to be installed in the project too, as fundraising continues with the project. So it was just remarkable to see. Actually, this was a East Coast, West Coast thing too, because this is actually implemented in a project in the Oakland area, as we thought and brought it up in our community and stakeholder engagement for this project. So just above and beyond with inclusive design and accessibility on this project because of our inclusive design strategy. So this is the finished building. Even the graphic that you see designed into the outside of the building was all done through community engagement as well. What we did is we actually selected a material that was in budget. There was a rain screen system that we picked out for this project. And then we worked with Allied Media's graphic designer to tell him what sizes he can use and how the material was. And they actually came up with this graphic with that neighborhood advisory board, the stakeholders in the building, and their graphic designer. So this is their symbol for accessibility. The reason the design on the outside of the elevator tower is the way it is. It was designed by everybody in the building. We just provided, as we say, the canvas for this to happen as architects. But it is, as you see now, the building is being actively used. The urban porch idea is starting to definitely be populated. They are, as you see, the bikers that are there riding, there's showers in the building. This building easily could have been well certified, but it's easy for biking. The bike racks were made custom by a local vendor in Detroit. Everywhere we could try to use local vendors, we did. There was a benefit to this project too, that we actually, because it's a nonprofit and the furniture consultant that was used, they were able to get a lot of the furniture donated to the project too, and just made everything budget-wise happen. And all the things help add up to closing that financing gap we talked about in the beginning. We were able to save like materials that were in the building. The vault door that's in the community space there on the bottom right corner was originally in the building, where we changed that floor level, where we saved that vault door. We used it. That's the main storage room for the event space and theater space. Everything came together. It was just the best, one of the best clients and one of the best projects I've had in my career. We were joking about earlier how you have certain projects, but this was a project definitely at the end. Everyone was happy, the owner, client, architect, and even the contractor. So it was a very good process.
And this is an example, and I wanted to just clarify, in terms of how this worked out in terms of, so DJDS came in to do the concept development in partnership with Quinn Evans. But but Quinn Evans was the architect of record that actually then took the project through what, was basic architectural services. So from schematic design all the way through construction, because they're local to Detroit. And so that happens with many of our projects, where if we are not, we do have some licenses in multiple cities, but in cities where we don't have a licensed architect, we will partner with a local architect of record, and to begin to then carry out the project. And so being able to have those kind of values aligned relationships is so key. Having partners that actually believe in community engagement, believe that the community holds the key to what is going to be a great design is so important to the success of these projects.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there were other things too. Like we were talking about inclusive design. All the restrooms in the entire building are all gender neutral restrooms. There is no separate gender restrooms throughout. Even the ones with the showers are all single holders on all 5 floors. So it like I said, it in every aspect of the building. Like I said, if we were going for WELL or any other certification, it was there because this is the ethos of these nonprofits, right? This was this was their will for a project. You didn't have to, I didn't have to, as an architect, convince them to do things. We were like, this is what we're doing on other project. They were like, yeah, this is exactly what we want to do. This is the type of spaces that we want to have. These are the, it was no, there was no trying to swim upstream convincing for anything. It was a great effort, and just them looking to do everything inclusive, looking to do everything sustainable, and implementing as much green aspects as we could to the project. Was just the centerpiece of the project. Like I said, you couldn't ask for a better client.
And so I just wanted to mention that, hopefully we hope that in another year we will be able to do a post-occupancy evaluation and actually go in and understand how the design of the impact of the design of the building. So not just looking at the physical aspect, like the sustainability, but actually understanding, how the colors and how the lighting and all of those things really impact how people feel and experience the building. And as I mentioned, we did one for our Restore Oakland project, and are looking forward to doing one for the Love Building. I did want to quickly mention that, looking towards the future, it doesn't just, again, stop at the building itself, but we understood that there were a lot of different nonprofits who were not able to be a part of this project. And so DJDS wanted to look at how we could continue to serve the community. And so we actually we purchased 12 lots that are outlined here, which are adjacent to the Love Building site, and are looking to actually build out a restorative justice campus, one that has different kinds of programming for workforce development, arts and culture, and additional retail, education, and youth spaces. And we have developed a vision for that. It is in constant flux as development happens, and we're looking for a co-developer. So again, along in that timeline, after the Love Building, we were able to gain ownership of that land in 2021. And actually have also formed a community activators board, which is helping us to be good stewards of that land. It is development is a long game, and so from that initial idea in terms of how long it actually takes to get the building built, we wanted to look at how we could activate the site and actually keep community engaged. And so we've done different projects and working with Developing Despite Distance, which supports young kids whose parents have been incarcerated, and we help them to build a table, and that table is out there on the site, and they're able to come there and hold restorative justice circles. There's different building projects that we've done as part of the Detroit Month of Design, which we just participated in October, and in the year before. We'll be back again next year. And so, you know, as we continue to develop what this project can be, we're, you know, looking forward to doing more work with Quinn Evans, and to help this vision become a reality. And so, you know, when we talk about coming together in partnership, it's developing the right partnership. Again, that values aligned partnership is really key to the success of a lot of the projects. And I know we are really close on our time, but happy to answer any questions.
Yes. So I should have jumped in earlier, but just to say, the time is good. But if you have some questions that you'd like to ask the presenters, love to start to engage them now. So I see Eric's got one, and anyone else, if you just drop it in the chat, I'll go ahead and read them off.
Oh, well, oh, should I
Eric,
type it?
no, I want you to go ahead, Eric. I want to get it going.
Okay, cool. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that project. It's amazing. And I love how detailed you guys went in terms of being fully inclusive from the elevators to like all gender restrooms. Yeah, so inspirational. I was really fascinated with the project in Oakland. I'm coming from the Bay Area. And so I know Oakland's really, really tricky. You know, especially since there are kind of faces a lot of gentrification issues, especially with the software companies kind of moving in and forcing out families. And so, was there any discussion about how to deal with the gentrification issues and having people perhaps losing access to the restore building or having to move farther away? And yeah, I'm not sure if there was a discussion about Oakland in terms of that.
Yeah, I mean, that project came about because of gentrification, right? And so, you know, the Elevator Center had been moving around for probably, you know, to 10 different locations in 10 years. And so, them being able to anchor themselves through that project was really important in term, but yeah, of course, there still is that ongoing problem of gentrification that's happening. You know, again, because they've been able to anchor themselves in the community, they've been able to offer more resources for people. The location of that project is also really, they're right on the transit corridor. They're literally right across from the BART station. So that's also a key piece. Being able to access that project. They're actually, you know, there are shared meeting rooms, and they're able to offer discount pricing for people to be able to access those rooms and be able to use that space. They had to be able to pivot during the pandemic. And so they were able to offer an opportunity for the restaurant. So that has become more accessible for people to be able to incubate different businesses there. So there's ways that they're working around that, and it's because they own the space. There's I think there's just more of an opportunity to be able to address those kinds of things. Can't solve all of it, but I think the things that they're doing are really are being able to address those things of access.
It's awesome. I love how the lessons were learned were kind of applied to Detroit. Are there any plans for other cities? Like I know with LA, I've been really curious about Homeboy Industries, and so not sure, and Chinatown, and there's a lot of gentrification issues in Chinatown and mass incarceration as well. Are there any plans for other cities coming up?
Yeah, our hope, you know, we are always in relationship and developing partnerships, you know, across the country. We've been working with with LA County on alternatives to incarceration and being able to look at what kind of different youth spaces could be developed instead of detention centers. You know, so that work is ongoing. And again, you know, these projects that serve as kind of proof of concept, you know, when people can actually see the project done, then it's like, oh, this actually can happen. And so that's what starts to plant the seeds for it to happen in other cities.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And
That's
coupling
super
that
exciting.
question, I'm gonna throw one in because there are half a dozen here, but I'm dying to know what was the connection between designing justice and designing spaces, doing this project in Detroit, being that you're in Oakland.
Yeah, so because of the work that we were doing, that our founders were doing in restorative justice, they also understood that Detroit was trying to establish themselves as a restorative justice city as well. And so that's where, in connecting with like-minded folks, that's what brought them to Detroit initially, as Saundra had mentioned. And so doing the workshops, that youth workshop, that was a major connection point where we were able to connect through Prescott Rivas and meet Saundra. And Saundra, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more.
Yeah, and like I said, Detroit Justice Center is also the second floor tenant in the building where the Love Building tenant. So they take over they're the tenants of the whole second floor of this project. So it will be, with DJDS buying the land next door. I mean, it's just started just to continue the work that's happening, plus the other nonprofits that basically wanted to be a part of this project. But literally, we went from a building that was 50% used with the Love Building to now is 100% occupied, and still more nonprofits want to be in this area. So it just, I think like for DJDS, it just made sense. Like, hey, this is a need that definitely needs to be filled. And I think making this whole campus approach here will be just, the way to put Detroit on the map as a restorative justice city.
Very cool. Okay, some of the other questions was, next one is there any active plan to use design strategies for affordable housing?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about doing community engaged design for affordable housing, I mean, we're actually working on a project in Crenshaw, and taking that exact same approach. And so, it does mean convincing a developer that you've got to add some additional budget and lengthen the schedule to be able to do that. But if they're, again, that values alignment, if they're interested in doing equitable design, it really does start with being able to engage community around, we're looking at what is affordable housing really. I think there's a certain model that's been set up around it. And so how do you shift from that and I think engaging with community to understand, like, what are the different ways that they see themselves with it in an affordable housing project. And I think that can kind of shift some of the things that I think affordable housing kind of has a stigma to it. And so being able to move from that, I think, can come through going through an equitable development process. And so, again, finding developers that are interested in doing that.
I have to say that's why the title of this lecture was Development the Right Way. It's like it was almost like having nonprofits who are mission driven, drive the development process is different than like Shelley have to say, like you said, you have to convince a developer to do it, to do their development financially a different way than what they're used to. It's a change in mindset. Mm-hmm. So having nonprofits at the table whose mindset is already mission driven, it makes it easier to get these principles into a design versus if you were to go with a traditional developer model.
Yes. Yeah. Is that project, Shelley, the project on Crenshaw near Vernon? Is that somewhere else?
It is it's in Lamert Park, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And right now they're in trying to acquire some funding, some financing for it. So it's going through that cycle. We're on pause with it, but hoping to start back up in 2025.
Well, you have to keep me posted. Know that
area.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Know that area well.
Okay.
So another question is, what is one of your favorite works of architecture from Detroit? And also, where do you see Detroit's future in architecture going? I guess
Hmm.
this question is for
Well,
Saundra.
all right, right. I don't have a favorite. It's a lot. A lot of them I was able to be a part of. Like our firm, Quinn Evans just completed the renovation of Michigan Central Station. That is, and Steve was talking about this at the beginning before we started. That is that project was the face and the gate into Detroit during the Great Migration, during the early 20s when Detroit was becoming the Paris of the Midwest, the industrial center. And then when the city declined in the 80s, that project declined with it. So it said abandoned and empty from 1980s to this year when it reopened. So it is a top notch. I mean, we do adaptive reuse projects, but we also do preservation project. It is a top notch preservation project that's just been finished, but it is a preservation project that still does not look at itself as pristine, even though the building was renovated to that point. It is also looked at, how do we take this roughly, it's roughly 900 million square feet building and make it have a spot in it for everyone, at least some part of it for everyone. So the programming that is going into that building is for mobility and the future of mobility in Detroit. So changing us from being the motor city and going towards all forms of mobility, and then basically having it be a place where that innovation and that technology happens in that space. So there's a new organization, Black Tech Saturdays, that happens at Michigan Central Station now. So it after what happened during the pandemic, Ford has changed their look of how they want to engage with that building and how that building engages with the community. So that's one of my favorites. And then, like I said, there's so many. There's so many adaptive reuse projects in downtown Detroit that are just amazing. If you haven't been to Detroit, I would say in the last 10 years, you need to come back and see Detroit again now. It is a lot that's happening there. Like I said, I think, yeah, definitely DJDS got their property at the right time within the city, because things are definitely changing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of great things happening in Detroit. And plus, when the Lions is winning now, the Tigers been on top. I can't go wrong right now. I
That's
can't go
right.
wrong.
There's money there. Yes. So this question is for Shelley. Can you tell me the process behind the restored Oakland Center you mentioned earlier? You might have mentioned it earlier, but I'd like a bit more of it, maybe in nation of, and how the idea came up, basically, what the design process was like.
Yeah, well, I can't get too much into it, be here for another hour. But
Uh-huh.
I will say that it came from the idea came from a convening that happened in 2013. It was about looking at restorative justice cities and looking at an Oakland corridor where instead of in redirecting funds from carceral infrastructure into uh community assets, or things that are going to serve communities, looking at youth spaces and education spaces, and what does it look like to have these different hubs that are located throughout a city. And so from that, the Restore Oakland project came about. Our founder, Deanna Van Buren, approached the Elebakers at the time. Zach Norris was the executive director, and wanted to come together to do something, and look at what a development project could look like. And they were looking to purchase a building, and so we were able, again, with our real estate development arm, be able to help them to purchase and negotiate the purchase of the building. And then we went through the process that we kind of described here, which is going through community engagement, understanding, how that can impact the design. We did a full seismic retrofit and and full gut of that building. I will say that, you know, we got it to a very base level. Again, you know, these projects are really difficult for nonprofits to take on and to do a capital fundraising for. So it, you know, when the grand opening, when the opening's happening, it's not like this perfect picture. You get it to you know, where it's occupiable, and you have a proof of concept. And then there was a second round of fundraising that happened afterwards, where then they were able to get all of the artwork and all of the murals and the things that really finished out the project. And so it was a continuous process that even happened after the building was built. And I think that's the same thing, you know, is happening with the Love Building as well. You can't get all the things, but you know.
At one time, and I would advise the students, you know, that's the beauty of school, and this is what you have to do in practice, is not just merely do what you could see, but you ought to be striving to do what you can imagine, because once people can see what you're imagining, it gets done. It starts to materialize, but you have to connect those, help those that don't see it connect those dots, because that's when the funding and the things start to fall in place. When people could see it, the money will come right to it. It's like, there you go. But another question was, how long is the process from getting the building to the finished product? Just in a word, I think we're speaking of this, the Love Project.
The Love Building. Wow.
Yeah.
I think the RFP came out in 2015, I want to say, when we were looking at it for the 4th floor. Then we were in that same RFP, we were like, okay, let's add a master planning element to that. That's where DJDS came into it. So we did the master plan 2015-16. Actually, no, 2016-17. And then by the time 2018 came, we were wrapping up, we were doing the charrette and wrapping up the master plan. And then in 2019 is when we started schematic design.
And mind you, you said that started out as just the 4th floor?
So it started out, the 2015 RFP started out as just the 4th floor. By the time we got done with the master plan, the owner had decided to renovate the whole building. So when we started the schematic design in 2019 for the entire building at that point. And so we were in schematic design and wrapping up CDs, I think 2019. Because at the beginning of 2020, we went into the pandemic. And then by that point, we had drawings and permitting at the beginning of 2020, had to wait for the city to come back on board to get those drawings through permitting. And then we started construction in 2020.
And when was it completed?
It was completed last year. So it was completed in 2023. Even with adding the elevator tower, that added to the construction. I mean, certain things just expanded things out. And then, like I said, it was supply chain issues that happened during the pandemic. So we had to wait to get some of the mechanical equipment, different things for construction. So construction went a little bit longer than what we expected. But we finished, the project was like substantial complete, probably towards spring of 2023. And then
it's an adaptive reuse project, students. Some
it
of them
took a while.
obviously go quite quicker than that. It
would have went quicker than that if it wasn't for the pandemic as well. So that didn't help. Yeah, I mean, to have the city have departments not even be back into play, we had to wait till they had gotten everything back into play,
right,
and pick back up on the review and everything. It was
And just I think about 3 more questions. This one really briefly answer. What do you consider the most important factor in developing a successful project? I know it's a soundbite because that's a lecture in itself.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I think it's more like it depends. Right?
Yeah, it's a lot of things, right? But I can say, I can speak for with this client. I could say it was the team. It was all the way through. It didn't there was no adversarial relationships in this project. There was all even from the contractor was selected. I had worked with Mid Construction before on Detroit Public Schools. They were the contractor for the project. Being able to find even our interior design furniture consultant, Kato's Design was from Detroit, but had moved to Chicago and had all kind of connections with the furniture companies in Chicago, and was able to get some nice high-end furniture from the furniture warehouses and Merchant Mark and in Chicago to be brought to for this nonprofit here to Detroit for little or no cost in some instances. It was just all the relationships to this project is what made this project great. It did take a long time, but it wasn't because of the people and the players in the project.
And this is a really great question here. I think a lot of students are chomping a bit to hear this one as they develop projects in school, where they ask, how do you determine the reuse of each project? I think they mean program, what components are going in it.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the process that we wrote out in front of you that Shelley was talking about. All the programming uses for this project came from each of the tenants, the stakeholders, and the community. We let them program the building. That's that whole key to social infrastructure we were talking about. Like this, the story of this building is not going to die because it was put together by everybody in this project. Even the art pieces that are going on the outside of the building now are replacing some of the artwork that was there that had to be either moved because of construction, the windows widening, different things. Even the art pieces are still being curated by the community. So there was a local artist that was brought on to help Allied Media curate it. Actually, in the opening of the building, there was an art exhibit on that first floor that was part of the opening of it. Yeah, all the uses and programming came from the community. I mean, I do a lot of community hub type projects, like co-working spaces are the same way. You actually kind of lay out spaces for things to happen in. You don't let the space dictate what could happen. And that's kind of how I approach a design of a space. I mean, when I worked on a co-working space, when I first started my firm, I was like, they asked me to do this. I said, I can design a space that I can use that I needed when I started my business, because I'm doing stuff out of coffee shops. I'm doing stuff out of, just getting started. I can have a space where it can be designed so I can have all the things I need. It's a communal conference room. There's a individual phone booths, or you could take a phone call in. These are all spaces that everybody could use. And it comes from the community and all the needs that small businesses had at that time. Same thing with this space.
And the last question I think I see, and I think Shelley may have kind of addressed this, are there any states in the U.S. that you would consider the most successful in architecture? No, it's not what you addressed. I thought they were asking the question of where you would take the development company to do projects, but they're just asking a whole general question of that. Let me restate that. Are there any states in the U.S. that you would consider the most successful in architecture? If so, then in what aspects are they most successful, and what would it take to apply those aspects nationwide or even internationally?
I don't know. That's kind of a tough one. Yeah, that's a loaded question there.
That is a very loaded question.
I mean, I go to cities and I learn from different cities. I don't know if I want to replicate
I think that's
from,
what they kind of meant. I'm because I'm reading the questions, but I think they meant, what aspects do you see in certain cities that you could point out and say, wow, it'd be nice to take that and put this in another city. In the US, that's a tough one. You go to say Spain, or you go to places in Europe and you see how piazzas are used for cool sort of things, and I'm saying, wow, I'd like to take that aspect. I think that's what they mean. And if I'm wrong, whoever
Yeah.
posed that question, take yourself off mute and ask it out loud. And maybe they've gone or they just ultimately shy. But
But I guess I have to say that when I travel, I take a little bit of certain spaces that I see and I do use them in the next project, right? There are certain spaces that you walk down an alleyway. It was like, that's nice how they made this into a public space. I'm dating myself, but when I was in college and I went to Europe, we didn't have a lot of coffee houses here in America. Like, there
right.
wasn't a Starbucks on every corner. There wasn't a local coffee shop everywhere. It was bookstores were a big thing when I was coming up, but not a lot of coffee shops. And now
And I'm with you. If we did see a coffee shop, I was in New York, it'd be Howard Johnson's or something, and that's not
yeah,
it's not the
that
Starbucks
yeah
experience.
Yeah, right.
yeah that third space to me came from other countries, like creating these spaces that where people can commune and could just do multiple things in a space. I think that concept definitely, I saw that in my earlier travels to Europe, and I saw it kind of manifest itself stuff in here in the United States later. But yeah, I hate to say the years, but yeah, it wasn't a lot of coffee
Yeah.
shops in those kind of
and
third
I
spaces here.
I can't reiterate that enough, folks, that going out and seeing different spaces
Yeah.
in different places, and we have students that aren't fortunate enough to get to Europe and Africa and different nations, but I say, well, have you seen how Third Street Promenade? And it's like, what? You haven't been to Santa Monica? It's just take a bus. It's right over there.
Right.
Go
Just get
check
out and
that out.
explore as much as you possibly can. Hop
Just-
on the bus, hop on the train, take a walk. I mean, I think you just discover so many things when even if you're just walking through your own
Yeah, particularly us where we're driving through all the time and you
yeah,
have to pay attention. But if you can get out of that space and actually start to look, you could see
yeah.
it. Last question, and this is a quick one, easy. They asked is roughly what was the cost to do the Love Building, refurbish the Love Building?
Actually, I'm typing that one now. It was roughly a $10 million project. Yeah. I won't say that includes all the furniture and everything in the interior, but construction cost wise, it was a $10 million project.
Mm-hmm. And my question, did you get to work with some of the interiors in that, Saundra?
Yeah,
This
yeah.
project?
So yes. Yeah, so we were definitely able to work with some of the interiors on there. The only let's see, some of the lighting that the acoustical lighting was part of the Chicago connection that was used in there, that was both solved the acoustical problem for us as well as lighting. The space layout is getting um, um, getting some of those office spaces to flow, determining which brick walls were going to be exposed, and the kind of feel of the space, placement of skylights, the views that in the elevator tower, the views that face downtown were all created like a window frame that basically shows that whole view down Grand River from that elevator tower into downtown. And the whole, it's a lot of different aspects. Yes.
Well, that's exciting. That's good to hear that and peer into the minds, not just from the outside, but really getting into the nuts and bolts of it. I think our students are very appreciative. And mind you, y'all, it's 11 p.m. over there for
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Saundra.
I'm missing my Thursday night football too, so I'm not even.
Yeah, you didn't
Okay,
tape it?
time to go.
You didn't tape it? You gotta
No,
tape
I'm
these
good.
things.
I don't rewatch nothing. After the scores are all out there, I can't
Yeah,
rewatch it
I
then.
understand. Well, that's why I'm not gonna know the score till I go watch it later. But
It's-
I'm with you with it. I'm with
Yeah.
you. Yep, it's done. But you know, time is long, and again, we really appreciate you both. It sounds like I need you both back because I'd love to hear more, Shelley, about the project in Leimert Park and how that's developing. And Saundra and I talked about, and there just wasn't enough time for her to give us more of a history of Detroit and projects she's worked on in the past and are coming. And that's why we say this whole thing is always something, because I invited Steve Lewis and said, you got to come to this lecture. And he said, oh, I know Saundra really well. I'm getting ready to do a project with her. I said, well,
Yes, yep,
now
yep.
I know who's going to introduce her. You must come for at least the beginning. So he had to leave because he had another commitment, but he did
Yeah.
that. I invited NOMA Phoenix and
Ah,
had met
yes.
some gentlemen there. And so there's one gentleman I met and know from the conference. And I said, please invite all of NOMA Phoenix. And I told him who was presenting. And so you're gonna laugh now, Shelley. He said, I worked with her like my first job. We worked next door to each other or together. Omar Bailey.
Oh my God.
It's a small world.
So he was at the conference, and I think he
Oh,
saw
wow.
your
Okay.
lecture too. But I just talked to him, so it's like the
And
Small
the
world
world.
is
NOMA conferences are
really
getting big now. Yeah, it's like
really,
you go there, you don't see everybody at the conference anymore. They're getting a lot bigger now.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And it's like we all know each other. It's like somehow somebody
Yeah.
knows somebody, So very funny. I invited Rod Henme. I
Okay.
Ah,
don't know, think
Yeah.
he's on the call, but it's San Francisco. But folks, it's long. I'm glad you all were able to stick with us. I've already got text messages and people saying it was great. Great.
thanks
So
for the invite. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
guys, you
Happy to be
really,
here, and thanks everybody for listening.
Yes.
it was wonderful. It was our privilege to hear it, well, mine to hear it again, get it from the beginning and get all of that. So without any further ado, we're gonna let people go. And there's people
Thank
dropping
you.
things in the chat.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much. And
Thanks
again,
everybody.
it is recorded, so it will be put up online. I'll let you know when it is,
Thank you. I'll send out the
All
link.
right.
folks, and then
Appreciate
you
it.
can have
Yes.
some other folks look at it. All right.
All
And
right.
as I said, if you go to EC, I'll put it in the chat right now, real quick, so you can see that. But if you go there, you can see some of our other lectures, ECC Art Club. If you go to YouTube and do a search on that, you'll find a good half a dozen different ones.
All right.
There we
Great.
go. Thanks a
I
lot,
definitely want to
folks.
see the SoFlo Stadium. I
The
was able to tour
SoFi,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, the
Oh,
SoFi Stadium. I was able to tour it when I was there in September. So it was nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have to hook up a tour for us, for NOMA in
Yeah.
general.
We were able to see the owner's suite to everything. It was so nice. Oh my
Man,
goodness. Yeah.
I could only imagine. I just got a chance to tour the Clipper Arena because I actually did a little work on it, and so got in there before it opened. And yeah, that's another eighth wonder of the world.
And I'll put one thing in the chat. I'll put the podcast interview for the Love Building that's in there. Um,
Okay, I will
yeah.
copy that off and try and share that. I'll share that in our different channels.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks so much.
Good night, everybody.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Good
Bye
night.
everybody.
Okay.
All right. Bye bye.